I'm Lucy Tolond. I'm a partner in the professional indemnity team at BLM in the London office. I specialise in claims against professionals, principally financial advisors, accountants and insolvency practitioners.
And I'm Ross Baker. I'm also a partner in the London professional indemnity team. I specialise in claims against directors and officers and traditional professionals, including accountants.
Ross, one of the projects that we worked on last year and earlier this year that was really interesting was our look at macroeconomic trends and how they affect the claims cycle. Of the work we did, what have you seen that's sort of come true so far, and what else do you think is on the horizon?
Well, I found that campaign really fascinating actually. Obviously we joined up with the Institute of Directors and we asked them to do a general survey of the state of the UK economy at the time, and the general feeling and the results of all of that, and they surveyed a lot of UK directors, was that there was a general massive dip in pessimism and sort of very pessimistic attitudes towards where the economy is actually going for the future. And we, in professional indemnity, as you know, we see this sort of counter-cyclical side to things where the economy starts going downwards, we tend to see more claims. So I mean, that was one of the findings that we had off the back of that. But what we did was develop some of the trends that came out of it. So you asked me about some of the key things that we saw. And I dealt with the directors and officers side of the paper. And from that, I think the key part is around the development of corporate governance and just generally regulations. There's been a huge swathe of new regulations recently. And there has been a bit of a link between the increase in regulatory activity to the decrease in the growth in the economy, and so that could lead to more claims for us to have to deal with and for insurers to have to deal with. But not just the increase in regulation, I think a key part was also a real push now for sort of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And we've seen this with directors. There's been a massive push recently. It started with sort of health and safety, it moved into environmental, and now we're seeing it sort of more generally. Most recently with the GDPR and the new Data Protection Act in the UK. And there's now a mechanism for directors to face personal responsibility for their failings if they've sort of consented or connived to something or turned a blind eye to things. And that general push for personal responsibility, I think, for the future is something to really keep an eye on. I think certainly that will continue to play out, and we'll see more and more push from regulators who are talking to each other a lot more at the moment. Will increasingly be looking to pin that personal responsibility on people.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two trends that I've seen at the moment which I find really interesting and which we're keeping an eye on. The first is an increased prevalence of what I'd call volume claims in financial lines work. It's not something that we traditionally see in this area. It's more traditionally seen in casualty claims, and we are increasingly seeing numbers of claims management companies and very traditional claimant personal injury firms making moves into this market and into the world of financial lines. The other thing, which unfortunately is always relevant in this market, is financial crime. It's not going away. If anything, it's on the increase. And so many of the claims that I deal with have some element of financial crime or fraud in which a professional has become involved. There are recent estimates, for example, that say that 1 in 10 pensioners has now been the target of financial crime. Pensions fraud is a real issue. I think it's something that we will see more and more of going forward, and professionals will be caught up in that, whether unwittingly or otherwise.
Yeah, correct.
I don't think we can really talk about what's on the horizon for the next year without mentioning the B word, Brexit. Ross, you mentioned that claims in the professional indemnity market are counter-cyclical. We are hearing lots of talk about the potential of a recession following March 2019, and if there is a recession, then firstly we may see that increase in claims, because professional indemnity, as you say, is counter-cyclical, and where the economy is in difficulty, often claims against professionals will increase. Secondly, and particularly in relation to the London market, we may see more and more people moving into emerging risks and emerging markets, and as a result that might lead to new challenges as claims arise from those emerging markets in risks that we haven't dealt with before.
I think that's absolutely right. I think our experience tends to be that it's emerging risks that produce the sort of more exotic claims where maybe not everyone has the right experience to really understand where the claims might come from, and they're sort of more left field claims emerge. And I think with Brexit, you're absolutely right to mention it. I mean, clearly in the very near term with Brexit, there's going to be a huge amount of new regulation. I just talked about the effect of regulation on the economy. So again, we can see that there's another sort of indicator for things possibly heading downhill, but we'll have to wait and see.